Success! Oh, hi. Glad you're here. I'm glad to be with you. Happy birthday, Flynn. Today I'm going to talk about the most impactful films released in 2010 on me. The ones that really shaped me. This year in particular, and this particular movie in particular, we'll save that for last. It's a short list, apparently, compared to all the others. So let's just get through it. The Other Guys. The Other Guys is a great comedy, and I'll just never forget seeing the beginning of that film when The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson, spoiler alert, die, falling to their doom, splat against the pavement. That was hilarious. Great film overall. But I'll never forget that the first time I saw it. What a great beginning to a great comedy. It was also the year that Family Guy's It's a Trap came out, which was the parody of Return of the Jedi. The first one they did was aired on television, but then the next two went straight to DVD for this little thing called money. And it worked. Because they're all great. I love It's a Trap. I often, doing my annual Star Wars viewings, will throw Family Guy in onto the mix. Clash of the Titans, when it came out, and I was a big fan of the original Clash of the Titans when I would watch old school movies when I was a kid, on like Sci-Fi Channel or whatever during the summer. The remake, I was like, oh, sweet. And for what it is, it really is pretty darn good, that first one. That second one, not so much, but that first one, I remember this was back when they were starting to bring back 3D, because this was shortly thereafter Avatar, I believe, so all of a sudden everything was 3D, and this was one of the better ones in 3D. And I just always loved the, Greek mythology stuff, and you don't get that very often, so you kind of have to take what you can get. And Clash of the Titans was a good. I mean, when you have Ralph Fiennes as Hades and Liam Neeson as Zeus, okay, you got Qui-Gon Jinn as God and Lord Voldemort as the devil. Worth mentioning. The Book of Eli. I will never forget The Book of Eli the first time I saw it, and I've seen it a few more times since then, including recently, and it just blows my mind every time. Especially being one of those movies that's different the second time you see it, like completely, because you're really seeing it for the first time. See what I did there? Okay, anyway, well, I didn't want to, I don't want to spoil anything about the movie, but I remember that twist and being like, holy guacamole. Totally different movie the first time I saw it. Totally different movie the second time I saw it. Excellent movie that I can pick up more of, even upon third viewing. And it features Tom Waits. Enough said. Tom Waits. Look him up. One of the greatest musicians of all time. Probably the greatest lyricist of all time. And any movie he's in is at least worth a watch. But Book of Eli is an excellent movie. Gary Oldman in that is phenomenal. The story, being what it is very hopeful. And I love the ending. I love the ending. It's poetic. Cop Out. But it's not a cop out. But Cop Out, speaking of, in compared to the other guys, Cop Out being a buddy cop comedy directed by Kevin Smith, with all the infamous stories of how, much of a jerk Bruce Willis was on set, yada, yada, yada. But it's a hilarious movie, mainly thanks to, I'll get it. Jamie? No. I keep wanting to say Jamie Kennedy, but it's not that. I know that. I know who that is. I'm just saying. Something Jamie. Jamie... You know who I'm talking about. He's hilarious. Forgive me for his name escaping me. But, from classic SNL days. Gosh darn it, what's his name? It's just gonna drive me crazy. We don't need this dead air. It's right there. Anyway, he's hilarious, and I quote him all the time. I clear out rooms when I do blowouts. When he's talking about God, his name keeps like um that one scene. Great movie. Jamie Morgan? Morgan. Something Morgan. Jamie Morgan? No. J- Moving on. Talk about a cop out. Oh, Robot Chicken Star Wars special, the third one, came out that year. Robot Chicken did a good job with their Star Wars parodies. They were a big deal back then because this was right, this was after the all the Star Wars movies were all over forever, we thought at the time. But then we were getting like a Clone Wars TV show, and then everybody was still trying to milk Star Wars for what it was, assuming that we would never see a movie again. It was only 2 years later that it was sold. Anyway, Robot Chicken Star Wars, always a good time. Harry Potter, I remember this was the first time after I became a Potter fan with my ex-wife. It was the first time since the divorce I was going to a Harry Potter movie without her. So a co-worker friend, invited me to go with them. I'll go with you. So I went with them, I think. It was a good time. It was part one. Deathly Hallows part one. It was the first of change, you know what I mean? Everybody grows up sometime. Except for Peter Pan. What's Peter Pan? Talk about Peter Pan. Skyline. Skyline is a movie you haven't heard of, and that's fine. But back 10, 15 years ago, we would get, it was cheaper to buy movies on DVD than it was to see them any other way. It was about the same price as a movie ticket, and you owned it. So what I would do is any movie that I had any interest in seeing, I justified it by I'm going to see that movie. I'm going to pay for a ticket to that movie. And I would wait for it to come on DVD, and then I would buy it. So there was a few years there where I just owned every single movie that came out because it was literally the same price as going to see it, because this was long before streaming. This was long before yada yada yada, even buying stuff digitally. So anyway, unfortunately that eventually died down. But then you get these movies of really cool, awesome sci-fi movies or alien movies or whatever have you, destruction movies that would just get cranked out so rapidly because whether they had a limited theatrical release or did go straight to DVD, we were buying them because that was literally the only way to see these movies or buy them, or the only way to, the cheapest. It was, there was a small window of a few years back in my day where buying DVDs and Blu-rays and owning physical media was the cheapest, most logical way of seeing any particular film. They were good times. I gotta pay for 10 different streaming services, and go to the theater so it doesn't get spoiled, and you gotta now I don't get really cool box packages or bonus features. I mean, I digress. I digress. So that brings us to Legend of the Guardians. I think that's it's not called something else. The Whoville? I don't know. It's the Owl movie directed by Zack Snyder, and he was like, I wanted to make a movie for my kids. So all of a sudden, out of the blue, in the middle of all of his other movies, he's not like Robert Rodriguez, who does both. No, he just did this one animated film. Not that Robert Rodriguez is animated, I meant kids' films. But he did this one kids' film, animated film. I don't know, I think it might be a little heavy. I don't know. I've never seen it. That's the thing. That's why it's impacted me so much, because it's literally the only Zack Snyder film I haven't seen. And every time I come across it, I'm like, I need to see this. It's the only Zack Snyder film I've never seen. And hoot hoot, Owl Nation. If you're with me, you're with me. You know, you know. So represent. Maybe someday I'll see that film, but it's impacted me greatly that I haven't. Hoot hoot. Owl Nation. Anybody from Owl Nation out there? Comment below. You know what to say. You know what to do. All right. All of those movies are irrelevant. Because 2010 was the year. 2010 was the year. Man, where to begin? Where to begin? Where to begin? Let me collect my thoughts. Okay. As a kid growing up in the 80s and 90s with two older brothers, the three of us were big fans our whole lives of the original film Tron. Loved that movie. To us, that was our big adventure movie. That was our Lord of the Rings. That was our, obviously not necessarily our Star Wars, but, you know, it had its own unique aspects, being inside a computer and whatnot, with its glorious design. And then as adults, we heard murmurs of them doing a sequel sometime. I think this was back in like 2007, 2008. And all of a sudden, I believe this might have been like teaser footage they released at a Comic-Con prior. But all of a sudden, I bought some Disney DVD. I don't even remember what it was. I want to say like no, it was the second one that, yeah, whatever it was. It had trailers under its bonus features. And under those trailers was the Tron 2 sneak peek. I don't even think it had the official title yet. It was just Tron sequel sneak peek. And it was the test footage. You can find it on YouTube now, but it's not the trailer from the first film or from the second film, and it's like test footage of what the design was going to look like. It was the revelation that Jeff Bridges was going to be in it, but there was even like an old Jeff Bridges up there, and then what it looked like. In retrospect, at the time, it was hard to connect the dots because you didn't really know this was the first time they've ever done something like that, what they were doing. But at it was young Jeff Bridges, and it was just this amazing example of what the light cycles could do, and this little battle, and then this menacing character at the end saying, you know, this guy saying, "Hey, don't kill me, it's only a game," and then, you know, it's Jeff Bridges all young, and, you know, not anymore. But in retrospect, obviously that's Clue. Anyway, but a great teaser. They even had old Jeff Bridges in his white lit room, looking over this edge, watching these two guys, and he was all long, white hair, beard, just like in the movie. Anyway, but it was just test footage, and it blew our freaking minds. We were like, is this really happening? Is this really a thing? And it really was a thing, and it really happened. And they made a sequel that yes, I love the franchise, and yes, I love the original. But yeah, you could erase the original if you wanted to, compared to the design of the sequel. Everyone knows that Tron Legacy is one of the most profoundly designed films of all time. There's no denying that. Anyone who has gripes with the film, I don't know why. I think it's a beautiful story, very well told, masterfully crafted film. Every single soul who's ever even heard of this film will admit that yes, the music is the best part and is one of the best scores ever produced in the history of cinema. Without a doubt. We all know that. Most people go, and the action is amazing. But for some reason, there's a good chunk of people out there who don't appreciate the story or the acting or the film overall. I don't get it. I think it's brilliant. We first saw it, and we saw it in 3D, and it blew our freaking minds. We loved the movie. And this was 2 years, well, 1 year almost, before I would even know. Before I would even know at the time. Now, I'd seen this movie in theaters many times. I'm going to give you full disclosure here. I saw it on IMAX. I saw it with my brothers. I saw it with my father. I saw it... Okay, first I saw it with a group of friends. I've told this story in my 30s video, but it was the first time I ever hung out with what would one day become my son's mother, was seeing Tron Legacy. Everyone loved it. We all loved it. We all embraced it. Now, the interesting thing about this film is when it was released, and I remember during one of my dozen viewings, the thought occurred to me, because they have the conversation at the dinner table. It's a story about a father and a son. Okay? A man who always wanted to be nothing but a father, and had recently come to terms with how that was never going to happen. And there I am going to this film with this young woman who I just met. But it occurs to me during that conversation at the dinner table, she asks Sam, "How old are you?" And then his dad does the math and knows how old his son is, and he says he should be 27. Sam's like, "Yeah, I'm 27." And I went, "Hey, I'm 27. I was 27 when Tron Legacy came out." And then I started dating that girl that came with us that one time, and we saw it multiple times, including one time on shrooms in 3D. I saw Tron Legacy in 3D in the theater on shrooms. And it was glorious. I will never forget that experience. Talk about the most impactful film. That could be the end of the video. That's why it's the most impactful film I ever saw and that came out in 2010. No, because then, after dating this person, one day we found out we were going to... Oh, while this movie was out, we were such big fans, we went to Target and bought every single piece of merchandise. I've got light discs. I've got light cycles. Or data discs, excuse me. I've got data discs from the old and new. I've got light cycles from the old and new. I've got action figures from the old and new, both old and new. We have everything.
So, you like bikes?
Exactly. See, I told you he said random stuff. I forgot to have that example. You should see the crazy story in my 30s video involving this. That wasn't cued because he's random, but I should have pressed it again to show that it's random.
You get the reward you deserve.
Yeah. So, there you go. Anyway, so we bought all the stuff. It was like a year later that we found out we were going to have a kid. And then months after that, when we were thinking about names. And I came up with the girl name, but she came up with the boy. She just threw it out there. She said, what about Flynn? I loved Tron. We love Tron. I'm like, yeah, that's actually a really solid name. And right then and there, we were like, yep, if it's a boy, Flynn. So, this action figure, I would press the button every day to see what it would randomly say when I would leave the house.
Greetings, programs!
Cool. But it's random. Sometimes it'll say the same thing twice. Sometimes it won't say something for a while. Yada, yada, yada. It's random. And then the day we went to go find out the sex of our baby, I was very nervous that it was going to be a girl. That's a whole nother ordeal. Trust me, God and the universe knew that I would only be able to raise a boy. And I was nervous, so I brought my brother because he had a girl. And most in my family line is all male. It's girls are very rare. Anyway, immediately the lady says, "Well, I can tell you it's a boy because he's very proud of himself." Anyway, before we left, I left as I do every day as I was leaving to click and see what he would say.
Hunger is our destiny.
It was very true and very relevant. But that's not what he said at the time. At the time, when I happened to press the button, it didn't work that time, but it worked in the 30s video. It's pretty crazy. You should check it out. Don't watch that video, though. He said Flynn lives. That's not even in the movie. Like, there's a couple of things this thing says, like, so you like bikes? That's not in the movie. Must be deleted scenes or something. But one of them is Flynn lives, and he says that. And I knew right then and there, my son, I'm having a boy. Sure enough. So, I became a father, and my son's name is Flynn. And Flynn lives became a mantra of mine, which comes from a bonus feature short film that's on the physical media Blu-ray of Tron Legacy. And it's pretty much a teaser to a sequel that never got made, that maybe someday they'll make a sequel, but it won't be the sequel to Legacy, unfortunately. So keep in mind I was 27, that makes me Sam, and that makes my father the creator. It's a father-son story, and now I have this bigger connection. One of the greatest lines of dialogue in the history of cinema, for me, is you did all of this. You knew that I would beat you, and you did all this for him. Why? He's my son. So my son Flynn, to me, was always what Tron 3 would have been about. Because, spoiler alert, at the end of Legacy, you have Cora in the real world with Sam. Cora would have been Flynn's mother. She definitely qualifies as a program. Flynn would be their offspring, their child, the child of a user and a program. Crazy. Anyway, wish we would have got that. So, of course, I got a tattoo when my son was 1. It says, oh no, because there's on the bonus feature, the story is, at the end, Sam, they're like, we need a statement because he's disappeared for a while and he came back because he was on the grid. And then they're like, what's going on? And the only statement he had was he opens up his shirt and underneath is another shirt that says, Flynn lives. So the idea was, it was hinting that Flynn doesn't die at the end of Tron Legacy and he will return. And then in the television program that came out when my son was a baby and his mother and I would watch, Tron Uprising, which is an amazing show currently on Disney Plus. That show, I don't care if you're a fan of anything, that's just an amazing show. Elijah Wood, Bruce Boxlinger, Paul Rubens. I'm telling you, I could go on for an hour of why you should watch that show. Watch Tron Uprising. It's amazing. And then the video game, which connected as a prequel to the other one, we played that like everything. Everything Tron. We had the Tron game on Wii, where you could play that one game. We would play that like crazy. Oh, just everything Tron, okay? That's why it's the most impactful film of 2010. For me. And influential. Hey, it applies this time. So there was all this and that. I totally lost my train of thought. We can't afford dead air right now. Okay, so Flynn lives, and then he's got the shirt Flynn lives. My first ever Father's Day, his mother, my first ever Father's Day, which was like a month after he was born, his mother got me for Father's Day that shirt, that very shirt, Flynn lives, that Sam is wearing in the bonus feature. One of my most prized shirts. I so outwore it, so I don't really get to wear it much anymore, but I also, when he was 1, got a tattoo of Flynn lives. It's my Tron and Star Wars tattoo because I got it in the Star Wars Arabesh. Look, I'm not lying. Oh, I'm going to stretch this out because I'm not going to like lift my shirt, but yeah, that says Flynn lives. Aight? But it's in like Tron blue. It's not as bright as it used to be, but it's like a neon Tron blue. So Tron. Flynn lives. Flynn is my son. Tron is partially responsible for my son's existence. Even to this day, where 3 weeks ago his mother took him from me illegally. I didn't get to see him or speak to him for 3 weeks. The longest I've ever gone without seeing or speaking to my son before that was 1 week ever gone without seeing him, or 3 days ever gone without speaking to him. But in that first week, I didn't even know if he was alive. I didn't know where he was, if he was okay. And I prayed to God, please, I just need to know he's okay. And then I walked past this action figure. And I clicked the button.
Greetings, programs!
And that's not what it said. It said Flynn lives. And I knew that he was at least okay. And yesterday, by the grace of the user, I got to speak to my son on the phone for the first time in 3 weeks. And today, where I finally get around to making the 2010 video that should have been done weeks ago. Where Tron Legacy was the by far most impactful, influential, biggest, hugest, life-changing film I've ever seen. Today is my son's 11th birthday. Flynn lives. Happy birthday, son. I love you very much. And this little guy's coming to see you later today. Because today, on my son's 11th birthday, I actually get to see him for the first time in 3 weeks. I woke up yesterday not knowing if or when I would ever see my son again. Then to get the opportunity to talk to him, and now know that there will never be a birthday of his where he doesn't see his father. Why? He's my son. And he means more to me than anything has ever meant to anyone. He is my everything. I love you very much, Flynn. Happy birthday. I can't wait till your returns to me. Until then, I want them to keep you company. They've done a good job keeping me company while we watched Tron and Tron Legacy. Both your final day of a 10-year-old and your 11th birthday. Not much more to say, aside from maybe